Hello, world, and welcome back to the Global Frequency. I am your host, Neffarious. With me is Adam Lawson, and we are super excited to bring you the first episode of our new review show, Rebel Frequency.
Rebel Frequency, I like that.
I mean,
Rebel, so it's the
exactly,
Rebel Frequency.
Rebel Frequency.
Dude, I think nice. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Today, we're going to be talking about 3 different comic books. Do A Powerbomb by Daniel Warren Johnson, with colors by Mike Spicer. We got The Last Ronin by Eastman and Ben Bishop, with help from the Escorzas, and it's just, there's a lot of people listed in the credits.
Awesome.
We're going to be talking today about Graveyard Shift 4 by Mark Colton and Jose Garcia. We've got 3 issues of Do A Powerbomb so far to talk about.
Oh yeah. Note that of issue 1, I have 7 covers. Right?
Did you get all of them? Did you get all of them?
No, there's even more. So this one was actually, this is Mike Spicer, his colorist, doing the art, who's a buddy. He's also doing the color on Kids and Monsters. So this is, you can see it's signed by Mike, and this is like his art version of it. This is the one I that gets me the most. I like. This is James Herron,
and that's the other one that I got. Dude, that's
you got this. This is the Virgin variant, right, from the store in North Carolina. It's like I saw that and I was like, it was $20, and I'm like, I had to do it.
There were so many variants of this issue. It was insane. It was like an event, which is really cool when you have a issue number 1 of a fun new series.
That's right.
You get all your buddies to come on and do all these different variants. It's like a celebration of your new work, and
that's what I really feel. Cool. And so what's unique about this one is this one's all DWJ, right? So it's all Daniel Warren Johnson, who I met at San Diego Comic-Con. I think one of the true great talents in the last 10 years in comics. I don't think I don't know if he has like too many equals. Herron, Sean Gordon Murphy, Daniel Warren Johnson. I think like they're the best auteurs in comics right now. But he was there, and he's doing this one fully on his own. The other ones, Extremity, Murder Falcon, was Skybound, but this one is fully him. He paid for it all, did the whole thing himself, and then Image is obviously distributing. But this is all him. And so it's exciting to see like he's taken the reins. Where I saw this behind the scenes interview where he had his family. He interviewed his family, his dad and his sister. And it was just kind of a fun glance into his life. You could see that this was one of the labor of love. He's such a wrestling fan. And I've been tweeting him for the last 2 years. When is your wrestling comic?
When is wrestling book? Yep.
When is the wrestling book coming? So I agree. There's been this huge anticipation just because of his love of AEW, right? You've just, as a fan, you've just been like, oh, when's that coming? And then, like you're saying, the celebration, 7 or more covers. Yeah,
exactly. And it's going to be a love letter to wrestling, but it's also going to be accurate. Like he's going to capture the elements of wrestling. He's experienced the visceralness as a fan of AEW. He understands what the techniques look like. So the action really feels genuine. The angles that make it so dynamic.
Yeah, the moonsault, you see this panel, right? Like here, the way the high flying feeling of wrestling is really, he's captured it so well, that the high flying off the top rope sensation that makes wrestling so fun in a comic book setting.
Another artist might have taken that angle differently. They might have shot, the moonsault coming from the top rope towards the person on the canvas.
Yeah.
But just like you said, the way he snapshots that's what it's like sitting in the arena, ringside, watching this happen. And that's what gets you all your juices going. So, he's really capturing that element and putting us in it. I don't want to spoil too much about Do A Powerbomb, but
let's give people the pitch.
Okay,
so,
sure.
On what? So Do A Powerbomb is story of a young girl whose mother is killed in the ring, and she wants to take up the mantle and become a wrestler. But her dad and uncle are firmly against it. And in that frustration, it creates dramatic problems at home. And also, it creates this very angsty girl who's fighting against family to
brooding, yeah,
brooding, yeah. But she wants to be like her mother, who died in the ring. And then the devil shows up and says, "I am having the ultimate wrestling event of all time, and if you come to this ring, you have a chance of getting your mother back." So that's the impetus of our story, right? This girl is going to the ultimate wrestling event in the hopes of bringing her mother back.
What's better than a championship belt? Resurrection of a loved one.
And the best thing is there's this ongoing joke that the devil, it's Daniel Warren Johnson's version of the devil. So he's fun and funny. So that's the gist of our storyline, right? So you can see it's fraught. And then it's a tag team match. So she gets partnered up with the man who killed her mother in the ring. So now you get, that's the story of Do A Powerbomb. So issue 3, which takes us to where we are right now. So this is when the action begins. In the first match between Cobra Sun and Steel Rose, they're battling against the Orangabang, right?
I saw Orangabang and I thought of ARO, and
you had to. It's like there's got to be the AR-15 shot in here with the orangutan. I mean, it's got to be in there somewhere. It's coming. But what I think is so special about this series is that it has such a great emotional ride. You think, oh, it's these crazy orangutans, except they're doing it to try and bring someone they lost back from the dead as well. He ties the emotional payoff into the plot and structure so that way the journey and the emotion are so well synced. And then he does these perspective pages like this. And then because he's got Mike Spicer, who I think is of the great colorists out there, that combo, the colors, and then Russ Wooten on the letters, it feels so handmade, so hand-drawn. Daniel Warren Johnson's art feels unrefined in lots of ways, but very dynamic. And I think this combination, I just don't know that it can be beat.
Him and James Herron, they really make the sound feel like it's part of the composition. Yep. Like right there with the slash, how it bleeds, the color bleeds into what's going on here.
Anyways, it really is amazing storytelling. So Do A Powerbomb, like, I'm usually not a single issue guy. Like, I usually read issue 1, and if I like it, I just wait till the trade because I'm not a single issue guy. But my reco on this is I'm buying issues. I'm buying the variants because I just want in on this ride. And each page turn, what's fun about it is you're waiting for this kind of splash. And I think for myself, what I felt on issue 1, the one critique I have, is it felt almost a little too on the nose. Daughter looks up to mom, she dies in the ring, and she's going to bring her mom back. It just seemed almost too on the nose, right? Like, where's the twist? At the end of issue 1, I was like,
issue 2.
But then issue 2, because the issue 2 twist at the end gives it that extra layer that makes it be, oh no, this isn't what you think it was going to be. So if you feel that when you read issue 1, know that you got to give it the end of issue 2. If that doesn't
screamed out loud. I was like, I know. What? Out loud?
I posted on it too. I'm like, that twist, you don't see it coming. And so this is worth the ride. It's worth the single issues. It's worth getting the hardcover whenever that comes. And if you're not a fan of Daniel Warren Johnson, you should really reconsider your experience in comics because it's
right. Reevaluate your life.
Yeah, this is the good stuff. He's committed to building his own worlds. Hence, you get rad things like this.
That, yeah. Yep.
You get his rad worlds, and there's a lot to be said for that. And I feel like in this community, and what's cool about this is guys who are doing that. Who are like, I'm not making Batman. I'm making Do A Powerbomb. Well, let's jump on to number 2. So Graveyard Shift. So I'm somebody this is volume 4, by the way. And for everybody knows, I've read the first 3 and the supplementals. And for some reason, I didn't order the supplemental on this one. And I'll never forgive myself because Phil Diaz wrote it. And I love Phil, and it's probably amazing. And that was my mistake. So I'm going to be looking for it on eBay. Or if you DM me, and I'll be buying it from you if you got it. So what's interesting about this is it's a big departure from the art style. So this is Jose Garcia. I don't know too many guys who can deliver pages at this level, at this speed. I mean, just look at what these pages are. So interesting enough. So if you like Malin style art, maybe you're disappointed. But if you like art that you don't get to see anywhere else, then volume 4 is an amazing, beautiful departure. I mean, these double pages are just beyond. And you can see the way he builds this sense of scope. It's huger than life. And so to catch you up to speed here where we are on issue 4, and what I think is, the strength of it is Polton, who I think is one of the most lovely guys you could ever meet. He's he and Malin, concoct the story, and then he's doing the script. And for the first 2 volumes, Malin did the art, and now it's Jose. And I don't think there's anything that can be said about art. The art is out of this world. The lettering, Eric Weathers is like a true pro. He's the opposite of Wooten. He's very clean, and it feels like an Illustrator file. Wooten is painting it in Clip Studio, and it feels like an art expression. So 2 different ways, both are good. But I feel like what keeps happening with Graveyard Shift is you get the world is going to end, and we have 1 page to react to it. So we don't get to have the pacing that constitutes the magnitude of the events constantly being thrown at you. I think we end up getting ourselves kind of stuck on sort of like just the surface of what this story could be, because the designs are brilliant, the character and the conceit of it is really interesting. And in Graveyard Shift Volume 4, the Supers group, we add Division X. So it's just the biggest thing it could possibly be. And a new whole superhero team shows up, and we're fighting the great elder gods. It's like, it's just so voluminous. And I feel like, we get a little moment there with Lilith. You remember they're like in that pocket dimension. That's kind of nice.
Where you bring it back down to just sort of like the individual level.
The intimate
storytelling is just 2 people facing off, rather than this incredible grand scale of like a plot line running that includes the entire world. It's affecting the entire globe. This is just 2 people. Yeah, I do like that dichotomy though. I like going from something super big like that to something super small. But I hear what you're saying, that like it's almost too much. It's almost including too many pieces in this grand puzzle, trying to balance that dance.
Right, because I think at the end of this, it's like, do I really feel for, like, I love this guy in Division X here who kind of has like this Death Doctor's mask, really interesting new character. I get just a taste of who they are, but I don't get to know them. And I don't mean get to know them by like, I just need to hear them talk. No, I get to see them do what they do, right? I just get glimpses of it. Or this guy with the axe here. It's like I'm saying, you just get the surface, right? And you don't get to the heart of all these people who make this up. I mean, like, here we are, another rad full group shot, right? But now we've added Division X people plus Vladimir, Blood, Lilith, Death Rider. Now, from an art standpoint, it's like these dope, these incredible layouts.
The layouts are great. The pages are a lot of fun.
And that being said, it's not that it's not an enjoyable read. And that's not what I'm trying to point out here, because I don't think any of these books we're talking about today are anything but like a worth to read, right? Like, you should pick this up.
We don't talk about books we don't want to read.
Like, who wants to say, hi, here's a book that sucks, don't read it? Like, what a waste of your time. This has something though, but I think that is the one thing I keep hoping gets cured in there. Like, Mark Polton added this moment at the beginning, which I almost felt like was part of some of the best, is you have this family that's here fishing, and the dad like believes in aliens and can't wait for them to come solve the world's problems. And then the aliens show up, right? And there's this battle going on, and he's like, I've got to explore this. And then he ultimately, meets his demise. But it was this really nice little glimpse into that character and like his story. And I can see he's like trying to get them in there. And I love those moments because I really treasure them in the midst of the big scope. You know what I mean? But I feel like, don't you too, that we don't get to have these moments with the characters that maybe matter the most, with like the head of Division X, with maybe some of these new characters that just got dropped on us, in this group. Like I'm not getting those moments that help emotionally ground me to the big crazy spectacle that is Graveyard Shift. So that's my
the only reason that it feels a little bit frustrating is because those characters are so cool. Like if
That's
they
right.
if they were characters I didn't give a shit about, I wouldn't want to hear about them. I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
experience them on that personal character level, like what we get, with Sun and Steel. These characters, they're awesome. I want to see
You
more
want to
about
see
them.
them.
Yeah.
I mean, another moment that Polton put in there, which I really is that when Jack Stone, and he like the actor gets out of prison and he's like acting like a superhero, like from on camera, and then he like joins the real group. Once again, a nice idea and element, but I feel like sometimes you get a little overwhelmed, and like you're saying, Neff, we want to see who these characters are because they're just too dope. They're just too interesting, and with Jose's art, you want in. Yeah,
you want to talk about Last Ronin? Like
let's do it.
The masterpiece.
First, I always have to say this. But what's cool about Kevin Eastman is you're really looking at the GOAT of indie comics, right? Like we're talking about the guy,
OG. Yep.
the OG, who has made, without a doubt, the most successful independent comic of all time. With it has no, I mean, in the last 38 years, it hasn't left television in some format. It hasn't left movie theaters. It's like this thing, just video games. It's just invaded, and it was really just him and Peter Laird just eating pizza, talking about what could be a cool story that then Eastman and Laird wrote and drew, and they printed. They got a $1,200 loan. This is one of my favorite parts of the story. So they had a $1,200 loan, their uncle, who believed in them, to print out a bunch of these copies of issue 1, right? And they went to this convention to kind of like say, hey guys, we're cool. We've got this crazy thing called Cowabunga, right? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then it's unbelievable. Then the rest is history. I mean, this is the fantasy story of these two guys who dreamed up something that then ignited a fire. And this book is, Kevin talks about it that, as they got into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, he wrote, 30 years ago, how would it end, right? But then he sat it on a shelf, right? So if you can imagine, this story is 38 years in the makings, right? Is the stage for The Last Ronin. This is Eastman's swan song to his great love and his great creation to comics and media in the world at large, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So this is like, when I remember I picked up the trade, the hardcover, I was like, you really feel this is like, you've got a thing that's going to matter.
It's voluminous. Yeah. Like
this is voluminous.
They made it an event.
Because of all the weight that's come before it and created, whether you love the Turtles or not, I think everybody's had some connection to them. And the way they're told here, it's so mature, but without being explicit. It has gravity without being overwhelming. It has nuance without getting lost in the details. And so this is, like you're saying, it's a slew of people. And what's cool about this is, so Eastman wrote it with Laird, and then you can see here's one art style, right? And then you can see it switches between different artists, and then even Eastman himself jumps back in for these flashback sequences, right? So it's old school Eastman tied into
the old black and white, the line work that he does with that heavy ink style.
Yep. And then to set the stage of the story, so what's happened is there's only one turtle left, and I won't tell you who that is because it kills the twist of issue 1, right? And
I gotta say it, man. We gotta say it. It's Michelangelo.
Really?
And that's the thing. Mikey's always been the goofball. He's always been the sunshine in the group. He's the cowabunga. Right. He's the skateboard. He's the pizza. He's the pop culture turtle. So for him to be the last one, there is such a gravity to that. There's such a significance to the fact that this turtle is no longer the light, the shine, the funny comedic element. He's the last of this. And there's something so sobering in that, and somber that you're carrying this forward with a heavy heart, and he is out for revenge. He is out to finish this mission. It's been out, right? You've got the trade. Everybody knows it's Michelangelo at this point. If they don't read it, that's in my opinion, that's a selling point for this, that it's Michelangelo, and you have to see how he's transformed.
I agree with that.
We can also cut that out if you don't want to put it in.
So I agree with you. That Michelangelo is the last, right? And the others are in his head. And it makes the most sense because Rafe always wanted revenge on everything. And Donatello was sort of a mastermind. And and Leonardo was kind of the leader, and Michelangelo was always sort of, like you're saying, bumbling around, and now the weight's all on his shoulders, right?
Yeah.
And what's really special about this is the reimagining of April, and or I shouldn't say reimagining of, but taking her to the end where she's now no longer the cute, fun reporter that comes in with her, jaunty statements. Right now, she's become this. She's now
this badass,
become the weathered war survivor. Right? She's become something else, and her daughter becomes close with Michelangelo, and he starts to train her, and you can start to see, once again, a sensei and a student, and the process beginning, right? Like Splinter with Michelangelo, you can see this passing of the generation. And so one thing I think that Eastman captures so well is this inner monologue. There's Michelangelo's voice to himself, and then there's the other turtles always talking at him in the shadows.
That wasn't an original part of the book. It wasn't originally conceived of when they were designing the book. They gave an interview, actually, where they said they added the ghost turtles. They added that voice. And I was so like, yes, brilliant. Exactly. That's the best part.
Yeah, I mean, that is what makes it, because when he's there, and it's like, because he's like confronting all of his mistakes of the past, right? Because when he's got all the turtles there, right, and they're talking to him in his head, it creates, I'm trying to find a great image of that where it shows them all talking to him. And it's not in flashback. You can see
no, it's all real time for him. He's dreaming. He's dreaming them there, and there's something so beautiful about that his brothers are still with him in his mind, but at the same time, he's haunted by those mistakes. So it's almost like he's inventing the manifestations of the turtles, the people who were closest to him in life to keep him company. But they also criticize him, and they also, get down in the very beginning. Oh, sure, you're going to swim through that. That's a great idea. Oh, you just broke into the city. Now what, smart guy? And they all have their personalities too. Like
here's a nice panel that
captures their voice. Yeah,
that's right. And I agree. But it's also true. It's all the unresolved things with Leonardo and Donatello and Raph. The things that he wasn't able to tell them. The things he wasn't able to solve. But then it was too late. And so he's still solving them in his mind. And another interesting part of it is that his mutation expands. He's gone for 10 years. There's a big explosion. He's gone for 10 years, and his mutation expands. This is a really interesting thing that they hadn't played with as much, right? The evolution of the mutation. Yeah. So the heart in this is 10. The scope has just this. It has such a great build because it starts you right in the action. Then there's a struggle. Then he finds April. He starts to solve the problems of his past. And then it turns into this incredible, couldn't be better ending conflict, right? And so this is certainly the swan song of the series. It's certainly, it ends 100 issues of TMNT on IDW. And I don't think it could have been captured better. The art team, the lettering team,
yeah, they
and just this ability to go back to those pages, that feeling of where it first started.
Yeah, in flashback and stuff. Can I say something real quick? I know you have the trade, but there is something to be said about the covers and the individual issues. I was really fond of the way that they did the individual issues. They are square bound, right? They're perfect bound. They're 40 pages long, and they're sold at $9, $8.99. So when we're looking at price points, if IDW can do it with a great title like The Last Ronin, there's no reason that we can't be putting stuff out there around that same price point.
And I totally agree with that. And see, I read this all in one sitting,
blew
with this,
right through it,
which has its own magic, right? Yeah. I think that was like Do A Powerbomb. Like, I'll read it again once it's all in one because there's another thing there. And this is probably one of my favorite of them. This was done by Ben Bishop. If you can see it here. The camera keeps kind of blowing out the title, but the weight on this, because he has this moment, right, where Michelangelo is facing the reality of, does he take his own life, right? He's failed, in very Japanese traditional style, and Ben Bishop's art just lands it. So if you haven't read, and here's the cool thing about this: if you haven't read the last 100 issues of IDW Timothy, you're fine. It's not an essential. I didn't, and you can pick this up even if you have an inkling of the past. You know who Casey Jones is, who April is. It'll all land, and it will land in the best way.
Which is the cool thing, because they made the ending the event. They didn't you didn't have to have the entire ride before that to really appreciate the ending, but if you did, then it's that much more impactful. And even if you have a cursory attachment to the turtles, or like you said, just encountered them in your past, because we're all kids of the 80s at this point, right? Those of us that are this old, we all encountered the turtles. This feels so weighty.
And Last Ronin has gravity.
It has weight to it. This is a real significant story with stakes for something that has been going for 30 plus years, right? You know, Do A Powerbomb is a fun mini series that came out of nowhere with brand new characters and an interesting emotional storyline. This has that, like you said, the gravity to it.
Yeah, totally does. Well, great. I think those are our 3 books. We recommend books that you should read. We tell you why and what makes them special, and where our focus is on building books and promoting and reviewing those that are built by the guy, that are written, drawn by the people who actually created them.
Yeah, create your own
squatting. We're not in the business of squatting on the cultural stage, as Alan Moore says about Marvel and DC, where the people making them are no longer connected to them. And so the hope of this review show is to talk about the books that aren't that are the cutting edge, that are the thing. You know, when you used to have that straight edge or punk rock show that, only a dirty, messy flyer was stapled somewhere to find out about, we try to bring those to light. Well, I guess this had more than a dirty stapled flyer, but these guys don't, right? These guys only have Sean Malin on his YouTube channel. So
what we're trying to do here is we're trying to bring attention to titles that are entirely creator owned, like Graveyard Shift, but also celebrate comic books because they're not dead, they're changing. And we have to help the newer books become the change. Like the Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see in the world. These are the changes we want to see. So we have to help people see them.
That's right.
Awesome. So thank you so much for tuning in.
Until next time.
We'll catch you later.